Here we are in part 4 of chapter 3, Impression Management, Goals and Strategies. So we've talked about forming impressions of others, and people also form impressions of you. That's something that should be readily understood. And so we may want to think about how we communicate with others so that they form a positive impression of us. Impressions are formed based on verbal and nonverbal communication, both within the interpersonal communication experience. So the way you behave is going to influence the impressions that others have of you. So some of the strategies here, we have affinity seeking and politeness strategies. Affinity is basically how much you like someone. Affinity seeking strategies would be to be helpful whenever you meet someone, be comfortable, be relaxed, follow cultural expectations, be supportive with your communication, be warm and empathetic, listen to people. These are all things that make you seem likable. And if you are trying to foster that impression, those are the things that you should be doing. Those behaviors are affinity-seeking strategies. And then you have politeness strategies, helping others maintain positive face. Negative face. Face is not a term that we use very often, but positive face is the desire to be viewed positively by others. Negative face is the desire to be autonomous, the right to have, to have the right to do as we wish. So we want to do things that foster that particular behavior. Be respectful, courteous, lower your power, make requests instead of demands. If you are trying to be a polite manager, trying to be seen as polite by your subordinates, instead of telling them, go do this, go do that, you might ask, would you do this for me? Would you mind doing this? Now there's some merit to that, but we also have to be careful in a power dynamic situation not to oversell or undersell our power. Maybe one of our strategies is to be believed. There are many things that we could talk about here, but credibility strategies are a big one. And as your text alludes to, there have been many conversations throughout the millennia about credibility. One of my favorite to go back to is Aristotle. Aristotle said that if someone was seen as trustworthy, in order for someone to be seen as trustworthy, they needed to be seen as virtuous. So a good person was more likely to be listened to. So we need to emphasize ways in which we are good people, what gives us credibility. In more modern culture, we focus a lot on credentials, degrees, experience, things along those lines. Those are the things that give us credibility. You can oversell yourself, though, to the point where people feel like you're being disingenuous, or you're being fake, or that you're being arrogant. Another way that we can manage impressions, and this one's kind of negative, it's about excusing failure. It's self-handicapping strategies. To question your own abilities, or really to point to things that were outside of your control. That exam was way too hard. It was unreasonable. Or I can't do this because I don't have the right tools, or whatever it is. And if you do that too often, people will start to get a negative view of you as maybe being incompetent. and their self-deprecating strategies. These can be useful for breaking down barriers. It's a confession of incompetence or an inability. And they can be useful, however, if they're overdone. They can actually lead to people thinking that you don't know what you're doing, that you are an incompetent person, or in some cases, people may just consider you to be manipulative and or lazy. So be careful about using this as a strategy too much. Sometimes we are trying to hide our faults. We do this a lot. So we can do this through self-monitoring strategy. Whenever we do so, we do run some risks, just like with all of these, it would seem. Emphasizing positive things, ignoring or avoiding talking about things that we don't understand can make us seem dishonest if we're caught in that. And if you are trying to get people to follow you, if you're trying to be persuasive, we can use logic. This is a good strategy. Again, Aristotle taught a lot about logic. But studies show us that whenever someone is convinced of something logically, they are more likely to stay convinced. Another way that we can be convincing is to stress similarity to find common ground. This is something you don't want to overdo, and don't suggest it's there when it's really not. Because then it just feels disingenuous, to use that word again. You can also stress agreement. If you can find one thing that you agree on, you can build from there. It's a classic sales technique. If you can get a single yes out of a customer, you can build from that, and you can get all the yeses that you want. And then another way that you can influence people to follow you or your ideas is to provide positive social proof. Point to other people who are doing the same thing. But be careful about using this one, because it is what's called a logical fallacy. It's a bandwagon appeal. And if that's your only proof to get somebody to do something, it can quickly backfire on you. Finally, if you want other people to know who you are, you show them. The example from your text says that someone wants to be seen as the life of the party. So what do? They tell lots of jokes. They get up and they sing karaoke first. They make sure they talk to everybody. They make everybody feel good. Those are image confirming strategies. Doing the things that they say that they're good at. And again, this one carries a slight risk of seeming self-absorbed. But it depends on the image confirming strategy, or what image you are trying to confirm, as to whether or not that might happen.